Hi, my name's Juliet, and I'm studying Italian, primarily with Duolingo at the moment, and also some other resources. You can find out my midterm thoughts on Duolingo here. Today I'm talking about one method of input that's readily available to everyone, and that is listening to Italian radio. So before we start, I know this isn't going to be totally comprehensible input. I reckon I understand somewhere in the region of 30 to 50% of the words, or at least the sense of the words. However, the main benefit at this stage is me hearing how the language is actually spoken. This is very different to when someone is teaching you, even if it is an Italian person teaching you in a video. Admittedly, radio is probably slowed down a little, but it's real language tailored for the Italian population. Anyway, I found this free app on Android called Radio Italy. It has a huge selection of radio stations and it works in the background, which is always useful. It does have ads, but they're only visual, so that's not a problem. However, there are ads on the radio stations. I'm going to concentrate on 3 of the state-owned radio stations, but there are so many stations on here that if, say, you were going to Italy for a holiday, not at the moment, obviously, you could probably find a station that would give you a flavour of how the language is spoken in that region, so that you can get used to the accent. The stations are Rai, Radio Uno, Radio Due e Radio Tre. Radio Uno. Wikipedia says this is mainly news, talk shows and sports-related content. And that was what I picked up when I listened to it for the first time without having read that. There does seem to be quite a lot of sport, mainly football, more than I would expect on a regular general content radio station. As far as I can tell so far, there's very little music on this channel, unless they're actually discussing the music. Radio Due. This also has a lot of news, but it has a more popular feel about it. And Wikipedia says that this is one of the most popular radio stations in Italy. The conversation is punctuated by a fair amount of music, which breaks it up nicely. And to me, the presentation on this channel feels easier to understand. But that may just be because it is broken up more. Radio Tre. This was the first one I listened to, and I clocked straight away that this was the culture channel. There is classical music, there are discussions about books, I definitely heard them mentioning books, and there are other cultural topics too. To me, the language on this channel seemed more difficult to understand. So out of the 3 of them, I'll probably listen to Radio Due more often, because it is that much lighter. These channels also have a website, which I'll put up somewhere here, if you prefer to listen to it that way. It might be my imagination, but since I've been listening to these channels over the last week, I do feel that my comprehension of Italian has become a little more fluid, easier. But even if that is my imagination, it certainly hasn't done me any harm. So, next time you're doing the washing up, or doing a little digging in the garden, why not listen to a little Italian radio? Let me know what channel you would listen to. See you next time.